Holy moly. This one went to deep emotional places that we weren't really planned for, you guys. So
we have tissues.
We have tissues here. All right. You might want to grab tissues yourselves. I don't know.
Yes.
All right. If you have some mirror neurons that are going to be firing as you're watching this. So grab some tissues. But we get into some deep metanoia moments in film, in Hollywood film, and what we share our experience of what they're doing in our life, but also what the Lord is communicating through this mode of film as well, and how it's just absolutely transforming our lives. Guys, we want to give you a lens to start looking at your favorite films as the Lord's speaking to your heart in some way. And it makes it so much more fun and so much more enjoyable and so much more meaningful when you start watching films through this lens.
Yes. All I'm saying is that we both cry.
Okay. A little bit.
So you're going to want to stick around and watch it, see it.
All right.
See my ugly cry face. Because there's points where I can't even talk. I have to have Matt read my notes.
It's still kind of cute. It's not that ugly.
Anyway.
All right. See you guys in there. Hey, welcome back to the Catholic Coaching Podcast. My name is Matt.
And I'm Erin.
And we are your Catholic coaches for the day. Erin, that's a nice cat shirt you have.
Thanks.
Fun jaguars on there.
Yeah, I'm not really, I don't know, big cats scare me. So I guess this is just me facing my fears. Exposure therapy.
Fantastic. And if you want to learn more about facing your fears, we had a couple of episodes in the past, actually recently, that we just did on facing your fears and reframing your fears. But today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about stories.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So we got a Christmas tree behind us. These are going to be dropping during the Advent season and this next couple of podcasts. And it actually makes me remember a story of Erin giving me what I claim to be my favorite gift I ever received from her. And you might be thinking, oh, it's something like a nice shirt or like a bike. Or
You never thought a shirt was the best gift I've ever given you.
No, the infamous T-shirt Christmas gift.
I do give you great T-shirts.
Undershirts. She gives me awesome T-shirts. But this was actually a book. And if you're like, wow, that's so boring. This book has changed the way that I watch movies. It changes the way that I listen to people. It's changed the way that I even reflect on my own life and the story that I get to co-author with God every single day and the story that He is driving. It's filled my life with a whole bunch of drama and excitement and tears and joy, just from being able to reframe the way that I look at things through the lens of story. And that book is called Storyworthy by author Matthew Dix.
Yes. I think another thing too that's kind of helped us watch movies differently is Theology of the Body
Absolutely.
Institute. That's my favorite day. Whenever we go to the immersion courses, they always break down a movie and they kind of give you new lenses to see the Christocentric theme behind most movies, which is crazy. So yeah, that's kind of another element that we're bringing into this.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing about Matthew Dix and the way that he approaches it. He claims to be agnostic, atheist, just not having any sort of faith. And so, but he has this really like an obvious gift, I would say like even a divine gift to be able to see things through story. And he's an amazing storyteller, has won all these awards, and now he's being hired by all these companies to help them tell better story in their marketing and even their sales copy. But one of the things that really stood out from the book was something he called the 5-second transformation. And that 5-second transformation is just, there's a character in the story that goes through some sort of transformation. There's a growth moment. There is what we might call a metanoia moment where they were doing things one way and suddenly now they're doing things another way, or they believed one thing and suddenly now they're believing something differently. And
can you break down, like what metanoia moment means?
Well, I'll get into that in a moment. But like what he talks about in the 5-second transformation, I'll share the story that he uses to actually highlight it, and he uses the movie Jurassic Park. So spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen it yet, but came out in the early 90s, so where have you been? Yeah. So
go watch it.
He's got a whole chapter of his book that's called I think it's called like Jurassic Park is not a movie about dinosaurs. And it's like, oh, well, like how does that, it really drew me in. And what he does, he says in these 5-second transformations in these stories, everything outside of that 5 seconds is just meant to enhance the profound transformation that's happening in that 5-second transformation. Okay, so if you go to the movie Jurassic Park, how does it start? It starts with Alan Grant, who's this archaeologist or paleontologist, whatever. He's digging up all these dinosaur bones, and he's confronted by the skeptical little chubby kid, right? And he ends up just like terrifying this kid with this little old raptor claw that he has and telling these stories about how the raptor would eat him if it was still alive. And then it leads into this conversation with his girlfriend about how he never wants to have kids and how kids are just repulsive to him. Well, later on in the movie, he ends up getting stuck with these kids. And they're kind of annoying. You can see that it's just highlighting how much he's just annoyed by these kids. Well, there's a moment where, everything goes nuts. All hell breaks loose. They're chased by T-Rex. They get away from the T-Rex, but he's stuck now with these kids. And he starts to warm up to them. And there's a moment that Matthew Dix highlights that says, this is the 5-second transformation. It's not at the end of the movie. It's right smack dab in the middle of the movie. And he says is when it's Alan Grant is sitting up in the tree with these kids. And this girl's just been sneezed on by this big brachiosaurus, and a little laughable moment. But then there's this very tender moment where he's just sitting back on his own, and the kids, just naturally as kids do, they come and they cuddle up next to him. And they say to him, they're getting ready to go to sleep, and they say, what happens if the dinosaurs come back? He goes, well, I'll wait up and I'll watch. And the girl says, all night? And he goes, all night. And he takes a look at this raptor claw that at the beginning of the movie, where he looks at this thing, he used this as a device to terrorize these kids, as a weapon, right?
To keep the kids away.
Yeah. He takes it and he throws it out of the tree. And that's the moment where suddenly now there's something that's happened. There's a change of heart where now he's stepping into this role, which is really the role that every man needs to step into. It's this protector where he's stepping away from his own kind of narcissistic, self-indulgent, just looking at himself constantly, what he wants and his needs and his goals and his ambitions. And he's being invited into something that is just more, I don't know, like a greater form of masculinity, a greater focus for himself. And at the end of the movie, you see this confirmation that something has changed in him, because these kids are in the helicopter and they're flying away. They're no longer, in danger, and they've got their grandfather in the helicopter that they loved. And he just loved kids. But then they're not cuddling with their grandfather. They're cuddling next to Alan Grant, and they're sleeping. And he's holding these kids in the most vulnerable place. They're asleep, and he's holding them. And he and his girlfriend, they're sitting across from one another, and they share this very tender glimpse back and forth, a very knowing glance. And she can see the transformation that's happened in him. These moments here of transformation are all over the place in our movies. And folks, if we don't have eyes to see them, we will miss them. And we'll be kind of like in the movie that Christopher West highlights in the movie The Truman Show, where this amazing transformation happens in this character. And then you have people that have been kind of watching this character on TV. It's a big reality TV show. And they're like, wow, that was so amazing. I wonder what else is on.
What else is on?
Yeah, let's see what else.
Where's the TV guy?
Right? And they just change the channel. If we don't stop and pause, we're just going to change the channel, and we're going to miss these moments and what they're revealing in our own lives.
I will also say, too, I think it is subjective, because you're going to share some stories that have struck you, some movies, and they don't have the same effect on me. And I'll share one from a particular movie that's always been very close to my heart. And just recently, I've kind of like broken that open a little bit. I might cry a little bit, even.
Erin, I
might bawl, actually. On this, so
wept.
Be prepared.
Writing the notes for this. I wept. I hard cried, and like Bryant was coming in to like I'm gonna cry. Do some stuff on like work on the studio today, and I was just like, I gotta get myself together. Like, he's gonna be here any minute. But like I was blubbering. Well, I was thinking about these metanoia moments that we're gonna share here, and guys, like, we're gonna share just what they're doing in our lives and just how we've contemplated them to just model what it might be like for you to kind of enter into these moments and share and like deepen into them and kind of ask the question, what's the Lord doing in my life? But as I pulled up these YouTube videos, I was hard crying.
Yes. Yeah. And what I was saying was there's something the Lord is placing in your life. So like if there are particular movies that you've always had an affinity for, there's a reason why. And the Lord's kind of like, I believe he's bringing you deeper into it. He might be wanting to tell you a story in a particular way, or speaking to a wound or a place of that is, he wants to fill with his grace and his story. He wants to kind of like break that open for you. So
there's a vulnerability even here and where we're going to be going today. Like I call these scenes in these movies the ones that I secretly watch when nobody's around, or the ones where if I'm watching them with somebody else, I'm almost focused on hiding my emotions. Like I even notice sometimes where Avila, right? She's getting really excited about something, and you start to, like, there's a movie or scene that we're watching, and she starts kind of going like this. You know, like that face that the kids get when they're trying to like not smile, but something is moving in them.
Aww.
And it feels kind of naked.
Yeah.
Because something's going on, very intimate, very deep.
Yep.
And there's a vulnerability that's there, and it's hard to explain it. And there might even be some shame that's associated with this. But when we lean in, and we're going to invite the Holy Spirit to just kind of help us lean in, help you guys lean in here as well. And there's something amazing that happens.
And as we're telling these stories, just kind of contemplate, like think for yourself, like are there any movies that have like always struck me? I've always felt like drawn to. That's a good starting point, because these probably won't be your movies, but think about that, and really ultimately. Yeah, look for those metanoia moments, which what you're saying is like those 5-second turnaround moments, those 5-second moments of conversion, or maybe it's the whole story together broken up into these little metanoia moments.
Yeah, so I want to take what Matthew Dix has done, and he's taking a very secular approach to it, and he calls them the 5-second transformations. What we're going to be calling metanoia moments is where we're going to be looking at those transformations in the context of the greater story ever told.
Yeah.
Right? Because these metanoia moments, these story-worthy moments that we find in our lives, it's not our story, it's our story participating in the greater story of Christ. So there's a unity with Christ that's taking place in these stories, which is why they, quite frankly, they feel so naked at times. There's a vulnerability. There's a union that is taking place with the Lord and his story in a way that's particularly tied to who we are, our identity, our mission in life, and how God has designed us to enter into relationship with him.
All right, let's do this.
Okay. All right.
Let's get into it.
All right. So I'm going to, my first movie here, surprise, surprise, is Field of Dreams.
Well, everybody's surprised because I don't think you've ever talked about it.
I may have talked about it because this is one of those ones that I know in previous episodes.
You think everyone's like, oh yeah.
So if you were to look in my YouTube, if you were to look at my YouTube history, it's like, oh yeah, Matt loves Field of Dreams, of course. If you were to look at my YouTube history, you would see this. I might have played this. The play might be in the hundreds at this point. How many times I've played this?
Wow.
I'll play it back to back and I'll watch it, and it's the last 6 minutes of the movie Field of Dreams. And excuse me, this movie came out, I think, 1989. Mm-hmm. Kevin Costner was the lead actor, and then you had Ray Liotta that was in it as well, the late James Earl Jones. So some great, incredible actors that were in this, and it was a very profound movie. That, like, there are still people that will go to the baseball field that this movie. This movie was part of the set for this. It's still there. This is deeply meaningful. So I'll give a little bit of background to the story to kind of give some context. There will be some spoiler alerts. I'll be talking through the whole thing. But I just want to break down what was going on in me as I watched this film, but also what it's revealing to me in terms of the invitation to the greatest story ever told here. Okay. So important backstory to Field of Dreams. So it starts off with Kevin Costner and his story. He starts out sharing how he has this estranged relationship with his father. His father was older when he had him, kind of had been worn down by life, but when he was younger, he dreamed of being a baseball star. And so baseball was a huge part of his father's life, his father's passion. And he always felt, as a son, he always felt like his father was kind of pushing his passion on him. And it got to the point where his rebellion, and this was like he was a kid that grew up in the 60s, but his form of rebellion was he started to refuse playing catch with his dad. And he and his father drifted apart. his father ultimately passes away. And he marries his wife, who's a fellow hippie, just like he is. And they end up moving to this farm in Iowa, and with this idea of just living off the land and being farmers. Well, there's a point where he and his wife, who's this, I can't recall the actress, she's wonderful. She's like just so fiery. They're living off the farm, and he's walking the farm. It's quiet. He's removed. He's able to listen, and he starts hearing this voice. And this voice says something to him: if you build it, he will come. If you build it, he will come. And it's a shrouded in mystery. He starts engaging in a dialogue with this voice. Who will come? If I build what? And you never hear the voice actually respond, but as he contemplates these words, eventually he starts to understand that this voice is inviting him to build a baseball field in the middle of his cornfield. Now, in order to do this, he's got to sacrifice a huge portion of his crop, and he's hardly making ends meet as it is. And so sacrificing his crop means he's sacrificing income. But he's got this drive in his heart to just follow. So he just follows the voice, clears the field out, creates this baseball field, sets it all up, and then the voice speaks again. And as the movie kind of plays out, these characters start showing up, these ghosts, so to speak, come and start playing this baseball game on the baseball field. And only he can see them, and eventually his wife can see them, and his daughter can see them. But as the story goes on, this voice continues to invite him to step out in faith more and more and more, until the very end, where they're on the verge of ruin, financial ruin.
Because he keeps being obedient to the voice.
Yes.
He keeps spending all this money and creating this field, and yeah.
Yes. But he sees this first baseball player, Shoeless Joe Jackson, who echoes back to him the original word that he followed, and he said, "If you build it, he will come." And it pans over to the catcher, who's had a mask on the entire film, and he removes his mask.
Here they come.
And he sees it's his father, and he has this moment where he just recognizes this father as a young man before he was born. And he starts to realize that this field is all about bringing his father back into his life, reconnecting with his father. And you start to see here even the divine reconnection of the children that have gone astray, the father wooing us back into a very personal invitation to re-enter a relationship with him that just goes back to that original relationship.
Well, also to let go of the rebellion.
Yes.
You think about just him being obedient throughout the entire movie is that breakdown of rebellion.
Yes.
That inner rebellion.
But what was another important part of just the backstory here is there's moments where people are coming up to him, experiencing this baseball field, and as they're being moved by this, they ask him this question. They say, is this heaven? And the music always kind of plays the same way whenever that question shows up. Is this heaven? And his response is, it's Iowa. And they're like, I could have sworn it was heaven. And they kind of walk, and he just kind of sits there and contemplates. One of the things that Ray, the character in this movie, does so well is he receives and he contemplates in this quiet. And there's so much being said in that quiet contemplation in this movie. It was so well done. Mm-hmm. And so he ends up starting this dialogue again, now talking directly to his father. And there's a moment where he is introducing his daughter to his father, introducing his daughter to his grandfather, and he says, "This is my," and he pauses and he says, "This is John," his father's name. So he's still kind of not fully just saying this is Dad. There's still maybe some doubt that's there, perhaps. Yep. His wife says, "Well, we're going to leave you two to talk." Very nice meeting. And she leaves with his daughter. And so now he's just left to dialogue with his father. And it's just a very casual dialogue where he says, the first thing he says is, "You catch a good game."
You catch a good game.
And his dad starts to talk about how it's just it's so meaningful for him to be on this field. And I thank you so much for building this field. And then his father turns to him and he asks him this question after saying it's like a dream come true. And he turns to me again, he says, and the music kicks on, and he says, "Is this heaven?"
Is this heaven?
And Ray answers him, his son. He goes, "It's Iowa." And his dad says,
It's Iowa.
"I could have sworn it was heaven."
I could have sworn it was heaven.
And he walks away from, and all of a sudden the music changes. And with this change of the score, there's a change that it's highlighting in Ray. And he, for the first time, he asked the question that arguably he was too afraid to ask before that moment. And he turns to his father, the one who can answer the question, and he says with this childlike curiosity, "Is there a heaven?"
Is there a heaven?
And his dad looks at him with this conviction and this knowing, this knowledge, and he goes, "Oh yeah, it's the place where dreams come true."
Oh yeah. It's the place dreams come true.
And the music builds and it swells, and Ray looks over to his wife and his daughter, and they're sitting on this humble porch swing, and they're giggling, and he's just seeing the joy he feels of being a father himself. And he says, maybe this is heaven. And he starts to see just heaven being, entering the joy of the father and the relationship with his father. Mm-hmm. And his father turns to him and he says, "Good night, Ray." And he shakes his hand, and the camera just focuses in on this handshake where they're just gripping so tightly, and the music starts to swell, and the violins are coming in, just highlighting the drama of the moment. And his father starts to walk away, and in my heart of hearts, I'm just like wanting to see this embrace, this like full entry into the relationship, and the moment that just makes, I think, every man weep, whereas his father's walking away and you just hear him go, "Hey, Dad?" Mm-hmm. And his father stops and he turns around and it just pans over to his face and he says, "Do you want to have a catch?" And his dad just said, "I'd like that." And they start throwing the ball back and forth to each other, and his wife has just she wants to immortalize this, and she turns the stadium lights on, and so center stage is almost like center stage to the darkness of the entire world. In the spotlight is this father and son doing just something seemingly so ordinary. They're just having a catch. But it's the most extraordinary thing in the world. There's a father and the son that have been restored to the fullness of relationship, and the ball going back and forth into each other's hands and each other's mitts is like it's highlighting this exchange of love that's flowing from the father back to the son, from the father back to the son, and just receiving and giving, and this being an image of all eternity that's now center stage. And as the scene pans out and it highlights and it just kind of goes up into space, you see that not only is this field the only thing that's lit up in the entire darkness around them, but there's a line of cars that are coming in to see what is the most beautiful thing in the world, this son that has returned to the loving embrace of the Father and is in relationship with the Father, and the purity of that moment amidst the chaos of everything that's going on there, and this pure moment of tender fatherly love is something that is worth stopping everything that you're doing and paying money to go and just soak in
witness,
for all of and witness for all of eternity.
Yeah. That should have gone last, though. We should have done that one last. I don't know. How do you follow that?
Well, I mean, like it's okay. Like this is one that I've like entered into this for so many different moments, and I share it, and I recognize it doesn't hit everybody the same exact way, but the fact that it hits me this way it means something to me.
Yeah.
It means something to my mission and what the Lord is inviting me into. Mm-hmm. And for me, you guys, like I can look at this in my own life and be so, as a cleric that's very driven and wants to create things, and I want to realize these moments and be very productive and produce. And there's something good and beautiful in all of that. But there's, I see in this invitation to not identify with this golden child, golden calf image of myself that's defined by the accolades and what I've done and what I've produced in life, but really more so defined by that restful relationship with the Father.
Yeah. It's funny because that was beautiful too.
Thanks for honoring that. Thanks for saying that.
I started crying too. So it has a lot to do with mine, which is Annie, which is the movie of Annie.
Tell me about Annie, Erin.
Well, it's interesting that you say it's about a father, because that's a really similar thing. But so Annie, if you guys don't know Annie, it's the same
Little Orphan Annie, the classic Annie.
But you want to watch the 1982 version of it, because that's the best one.
The year you were born.
It was that was another. Okay, so this happened on Saturday. I was journaling about this, and Annie came to mind, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready. But then I looked up, the clips on YouTube, and it says the year, right there, 1982. I'm like, that's when I was born. So there you guys, now you know how old I am.
We even named our dog Annie after Little Orphan Annie.
Because we got her at a pet store. Everyone's like, you got your dog at a pet shop? I'm like, they're orphans too. So yes.
Goodness gracious.
Yes.
Give us a break.
We need to adopt them. So anyway, Annie is, yes. So she is an orphan, and it's right around, depends on which version of Annie you watch. But if you're watching the 1982, the best one, it's during the Depression.
Yeah, kind of the outskirts of it. It's right before World War II is starting. Yeah.
Yes. And the opening scene, she's singing a song, Maybe, and she's dreaming about her parents. And that song is important because it comes back later. There's a reprise of it. But so she's singing that, and then it shows how dark and dismal her life is, but also how scrappy she is, and she just is a fighter. She's gonna get out of this. So right in one of the opening scenes, she gets in trouble, and because she sneaks out, she tries to escape the orphanage, her prison, if you will. So she gets caught, and right when she gets caught, she kind of is eavesdropping on this conversation. And Grace, who works for Daddy Warbucks, is I'm coming to get an orphan because he needs an orphan, so his PR, so he looks better, pretty much.
Yep.
And she kind of from the closet's I want someone who's 10 and has red hair, and there's this conversation. If you guys haven't seen it, you have to watch the movie. Yep. So Annie gets out of it. She gets out of being in trouble. She kind of gets a reprieve, and I think that part is kind of interesting because it's not because she's this is my dream come true. I just don't want to be in trouble anymore. I just don't want to be in this place anymore. And I think so often that's what brings us to God. That's what brings us to God the Father. It's just I just don't want to be in this place anymore. It's not this really true, I guess, noble desire. It's just I don't want to be here, And so she goes, and, she sees wow, this is really incredible. She lives under these conditions of extreme provision. She goes from poverty to provision.
Yes,
this guy,
massive mansion.
Yes.
All kinds of waiters and waitresses and dresses and big fluffy beds, and everything is taken care for. She doesn't have to do any work.
Yes. Yes. The scene where she realizes she doesn't have to earn her keep, that part always kind of struck me too, because she comes here and they're like, what do you want to do first? And they're thinking recreation wise. And she's like, well, I'll do the windows because if it drips, then I can do the floors after, and she's talking about earning her keep. And they're like, you don't need to work here, Annie. You're a guest. And that goes into a song. So anyway, the scene that there's like a couple scenes where there's like these metanoia moments where her and Daddy Warbucks, they start to have this like relationship. But I think his metanoia moment is when he gives her the locket, the new locket, because the entire time she's holding on to this old locket that her parents gave her, and she's still dreaming of her parents, and she's still thinking they're going to come back and get me, and
when
all
in
that.
reality they died in a fire.
Yes, when in reality they are non-existent. Yes, and they left her this locket, and it's broken, and it's kind of like not even shiny. You know, it's just like it's like grubby looking, and she's like hanging on to it, and it's beautiful, and you totally understand. You're like, I get it. You know, like you want your parents, and yet she can't really see what's unfolding in front of her, that God has given her like this incredible provision. I knew I would cry.
I never thought the significance of the locket, right? Of which is so central, like to the, if you've watched
It's a heart.
it's like
it's literally a heart shaped.
And you're right. Like there's kind of this old grubby heart where she has this image of love. Like she sings and she has this fantasy. It's like about her parents. She's so attached to this fantasy. You know, maybe they collect things like ashtrays and arts.
Yeah.
Like and she has, but the image that she's holding on to and she's grasping at is so. I mean, the image that that the Lord wants to give to her is so much greater than that, and she just needs to kind of let go. And arguably, it's the not letting go of that allows her to be duped.
Yes.
When her fake parents, like these people, con artists showing up as her parents,
the counterfeit
shows up, and she allows herself to be duped.
Yeah. Well, even the moment where, so Daddy Warbucks, when he's like, gives her this locket. I don't remember if he gives her the locket first, and then she's like, can we find my parents? Like the whole time she's like talking about finding her parents, but like really he kind of gives her the locket and then realizes like, oh, I need to make this sacrifice. I need to like help her find her parents. Well,
he gives her the locket, and she says, well, what's wrong with my old locket?
Yeah, that's right.
And so he realizes that she's not open to receive the locket. Like he has something amazing that he's inviting her into. It's like, I want to adopt you pretty much. And she's still clinging to kind of the old way and the old image. And so, but what he does that's so tender is where he usually, when he doesn't get what he wants, he flies off the handle because he's got all this power and he's got all this money and people just do whatever he says. But rather he responds so tenderly. And he says, okay, well, I'm going to take all of my power, all of my assets, all of my influence, and I'm going to pour that into finding your parents for you. And just, even if that means that I don't get to have you, like it's just a very sacrificial, thinking of her and what she wants and her desires, putting that first. Even if it means that he's not necessarily going to have her. What's coming up for you right now, Erin?
Sorry. Keep talking.
So it's like I'm talking, she's just nodding along, and it's like her eyes are just getting bigger right now, folks. Like, go watch on YouTube if you want to just be entertained by like a couple of blubbery people right now talking about movies. But yeah, so checking in with you, like, there's something that's moving you in that. Yeah,
I don't know. The story has like been told over and over and over again. It makes me think of the prodigal son. In a sense, like the prodigal son leaves for different reasons, but like he's attached to what he believes is going to make him happy. And in the same sense, that's kind of like what Annie is attached to too. And, I experienced that as well, where it's like, no, this is going to make me happy. And he's like, no, I'm here, but I'll even help you. I'll help you figure this out. So there's this other scene that keeps coming back to me they find her counterfeit parents. They're fake. They're con people,
Yeah.
right? Right. And the reason why they're con people is that Daddy Warbucks, he was paying, giving people like a reward.
Yeah.
For saying that they're.
For showing up, right?
It's not like the wisest thing to do when you're a billionaire. Like be like, I
Just throw
reward
money out. But anyways.
people who are gonna lie.
Yeah, during the Depression.
Yeah.
So he finds out that they're con artists.
Yep. No. It's when she's leaving.
When she's leaving.
So that song maybe comes up again.
Okay. Yes. He doesn't know yet. He's just let her go, and he thinks that he's lost her forever.
Yes. But it's not his part is kind of like he's like self-protecting, but it's like right before he starts singing, she's singing in the room as she's like packing. If I read it, I'm going to like cry.
So she says, maybe I'll forget how nice he was to me and how I was almost his baby. All right. That ambushed me a little bit. And then he says the same thing, how she was almost my baby.
Yeah.
I know I'll forget how much she meant to me and how she was almost my baby.
Yeah. I mean, like in some ways, like what's coming to mind right now are all the parents that have kids that have gone astray, that are away from the faith, and the sadness that they feel.
They chose the counterfeit.
That they chose the counterfeit over the real thing. Right. And just, even seeing that image there in Daddy Warbucks. Right. But the moment that he realizes that they're counterfeit too, and the way that he just immediately goes to her rescue. And it's kind of like a simultaneous, he realized they're counterfeit. She realizes that she's been duped and they're counterfeit. And both of them just immediately start to try to find one another or run back to the other, which is amazing here.
What I like about that part where she sang that was she started to realize, because up until that point, she was like, where are my parents? Where are my parents? Where are my parents? And then it's like this lucid moment where it's just like, now that I'm leaving it, I'm realizing that
he was a good father. Oh boy. Okay. No, but like it's this, I don't want to degrade the moment. Like, yeah, we're blubbering, but it's just like, there's something sacred that's happening here, folks. And in these moments, there's a real sacredness.
You guys all get to enjoy it with us. Yeah. Normally we do this
if you're still here
in prayer by ourselves.
But anyways, this is where I was just like weeping. I don't know if I can handle taking you guys through my next movie, which would be Rudy.
Yeah, let's pause on that one.
That's great. I almost did On Golden Pond, which has such a connection also to my dad. It's his favorite movie. My father's still with us. I don't want to talk about him like he's not here anymore. Right? He's right down the road, right? But,
yes.
But I know there's a moment where he won't be, So let's stop there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we're going straight up melancholic.
All right, so
you're going melancholic right now.
I'm feeling I have a heart, Matt.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Really,
let's put a bow on this.
There it is. We gave you guys our Metanoia moment movies, our favorite ones.
Yeah.
And honestly, just talking about it out loud, which I recommend you guys do that with others because it pulls more out of it, of like having those discussions. Like I didn't make a lot of those connections before.
Yeah.
Before we started talking about it. Yep. Which maybe in the future I just do that before, so it's not all new. But there you have it. It's honesty.
I think there's something that's naked about doing this kind of like work into the things that we're certainly really passionate about. So for you guys, some homework for you.
Yeah.
What are the movies? First question: what are the movies that you're really passionate about,
or just
really
like
move you,
hit you?
Yeah.
Like. Honestly,
the ones you return to all
before
the time.
I knew how to do this, before I knew how to like kind of look at a movie and it through a different lens, I never looked at Annie like that. Like it wasn't even like I wasn't like, oh, must be Annie. Like
revealing something in the depths of my heart.
It was just like, oh, I like the music. I grew up with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like, don't just, write it off if it's something that you grew up with and that you're like, oh wow. But like, if it does kind of stir something in you, just go a little bit deeper. Ask a couple of these questions. Are there any questions that you can ask?
So I have here is like, who in that movie, who are the characters that you feel drawn to? Is there a particular character to whom you feel drawn? What moves you about that character's story? Is it the struggle that they're going through? Is it, what's their metanoia moment the character goes through in their story? Like, is there a specific part that you feel drawn to? Like, I can tell you, like, Field of Dreams, I will go back and I'll watch that over and over and over again. Even today, another one that I was watching was the turning point where in The Matrix, towards the end, where Neo is fighting Mr. Smith, and it's one of those says his name moments where Smith keeps calling him Mr. Anderson, and then he goes, "My name is Neo," and he just like, that's like the moment where he fights.
On that.
Oh,
like claiming names.
Claiming names is just,
because this is like, if we were to like put a theme on this one, this is like fatherhood. This is like all about fatherhood.
You're right. Yeah,
these metanoia
wasn't planned.
Metanoia
Metanoia the movies.
Yes, there you go. that's what we should call this podcast.
Okay.
And then like the crying one. That should be the subtitle.
Anyways, okay. So what are the movies that you love, that you're drawn to, the ones that you return to? What's the character in those movies that you feel drawn to? What's their story like? Is there a particular part of their story or struggle that they go through? What's their transformation moment? And just start there, guys, and just dig into that and bring it into your prayer. Don't think that just because it's a secular movie that the Lord can't speak through those moments. He speaks to us in all these different ways. And I think it's even more amazing where Hollywood, in spite of themselves, still can't help but telling the greatest story ever told, or revealing deep truths about the Father's love for us.
We can't get away from it.
Yeah.
We cannot get away from the story. And another question I would add to it, just to top this off, is what theme in the Bible does this story reflect? Like we were just saying, like prodigal son, and like also just fatherhood and sonship and daughterhood.
Sure, whatever. I don't know.
What is the word for that?
I have no idea.
Daughterhood. I think that's it.
It's daughtership, whatever. Let's go with that.
So, So like, what is that theme? What's that scriptural theme that's kind of that's coming to play here?
Yeah.
Because that is how you kind of connect it to the greatest story. And also, Lord, what are you trying to tell me in this? Make it into a prayer. Lord, what are you trying to tell me in this? I literally, that was like, I just wrote down that line from Annie and couldn't even read it out loud. So clearly I'm just going to bring that to prayer, and I'm going to be like, Lord, what are you trying to tell me in this?
All right. We're going to go and sleep off this emotional hangover, but
vulnerability hangover.
Guys, yeah, we will see you next week, and we might cry all over again. No promises. All right.
Bye, guys.
Also, check out our Advent thing. And little thing we've got in mid-December, starting December 11th, we have an Advent immersion series. So we'll put the link to that. You can check that out if you're looking for something to do to deepen your prayer life and encounter the Lord and have more metanoia moments for yourself. That Advent immersion series is going to be a great fit for you guys. So check it out in the show notes. All right. Cool.
See you guys next week.
God bless.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.